Hey, Bayor, good contacting you again. I apologize. I haven't been able to get back to Mongolia with some assignments. And as you know, I'm going to be leaving for another country in Africa, Ghana, for this trip. In the meantime, you and I always like doing our updates, newsworthy updates, what's going on in Mongolia. So one of the first questions I have is last October, November in 2022, you had about 10,000 Russians come through the border into Mongolia to escape the conscription. So what's happened since then?
Hey, Will, it's good to see you again. So let me update you on the situation of Russians in Mongolia. So when the military conscription started in Russia, a lot of thousands of Russians, mostly young men, pouring into Mongolia from Russia. But they didn't stay. They stayed in Mongolia probably about 2 or 3 months, and they moved to another countries. For example, my friend, Crazy Russian Sergey, who I interviewed on my channel, he stayed in Mongolia about a few weeks, and then he moved to other Asian countries. So I think the most Russian men who came to Mongolia during that time moved to other countries, other visa-free countries. And of course, because Russia and Mongolia are neighbors, so we are constantly being updated on the situation, on the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And there are pro-Russians and there are pro-Ukrainians, and people are divided too, and there have been some protests. But in terms of Russian men coming to Mongolia, you don't see that much Russian men today compared to what was happening in the last November, December, in the past few months. Yeah.
For this interview, and possibly coming back to Mongolia, I was doing some preparation work, and like the year 2023, the Mongolian government has got a big push on for economic development and tourism into Mongolia, and of course with the new Genghis Khan airport. But have you seen any kind of results from the tourism push that the Mongolian government wants to see to start this year?
Mm-hmm. Well, the government has been promoting this tourism year since last February, March, and I can see that there are a lot of tourists are coming since the start of March, but also the COVID restrictions are lifted and there are no COVID tests, and so I think it's also affecting the tourism industry in general. So, for example, last week, International Shaman Festival took place near Ulaanbaatar, and I saw a lot of tourists coming from other countries. And also, I think this year Mongolian tourism is going to be really flourish. The big reason is because there is no COVID restrictions, and also the governments have been implementing a lot of projects that helps the Mongolian tourism industry. So yeah, I think this year the tourism industry is gonna really flourish. Yeah.
The other project that I've been following, I don't know how successful it's been, but I remember that the Mongolian government by 2020 or 2030 wanted to plant 1 billion trees in the 21 AMEGs. And I know I've had a chance to go to Tuve province, Dornod, and Dongovi, Sabata provinces, where they're each trying to plant, and I'm going to say upwards to, some, I think even Dornod province is trying to plant 20,000 trees as part of their contribution. And even the large mining conglomerate out in the Gobi had made a commitment to it. So again, have you started seeing any progress with this extensive tree planting project?
Hmm. Well, I really didn't travel that much this year around Mongolia. So, but as far as I know, this 1 billion tree project has been implemented all around the country in 21 provinces. For example, you visited the Darnot province, and you also saw the first-hand experience of how this project is being implemented. But from my experience, my personal experience, uh, individual people, just general citizens, are taking initiatives to help help plant the trees. For example, I work for a judo club, and a few weeks ago, uh, we planted maybe 100 trees near the Lambator, near the river basin. So there's a lot of concerns about the climate change and desertification, and there's concerns about the water, clean water uh, supplies being on short. So people are taking initiatives on their own and planting trees near Ulaanbaatar. Maybe companies, organizations, NGOs. So from my experience, maybe a few weeks ago we planted 100 trees, and it's not that much, but still it's helping the cause. So I think this whole movement, the plant the trees and help nature, combat the climate change, I think this is taking momentum.
Good. So just change the subject slightly. I know that that you had an opportunity to take some train travel into Russia with some of your work, and you did some short videos on the train travel from Ulaanbaatar into some smaller communities in Russia. So how did those travels go?
Well, I've been doing a lot of work trips this year, and I went to Russia maybe 2, 3 times for work. It was a sports competition, and I like train travels a lot because compared to a plane, you can actually see the landscape, nature, also people, and you can interact with the local people. So I really like train traveling. And apart from Russia, I also traveled to Irtnet and Tarkhan, which is also connected by the train rail. So, for example, I went to Russia this winter, and it was very cold, but it was a Trans-Siberian Railway line, which runs from all the width of Russia. So the trains there was very modern compared to Mongolia, because Mongolian trains are very old, outdated. It was We bought those trains probably in the 70s and 80s from Russia, Soviet Union, but now it's really old. But in Russia, the trains are new, especially the VIP section. They are really like on par with the European and Western trains. So I was really impressed by the condition of Russian trains, and yeah, I will probably do more travels in the coming months.
That was good. I'm glad you were able to get away. As you know, if I was back in Mongolia right now, I'd want to, go see the camel festivals. I wanted to see the preparation for Nadam festival, and it would have been great to go to a few more of those small town horse races,
Yeah.
which are quite exciting, especially when you have, young riders going 8, 10 kilometers, across the steppes. That's exciting.
Yeah, horse racing is a big part of our culture and heritage, and all the year round, the small races take place all around the country. But of course, the biggest race is Nadam Festival, because it's like a national championship. But Mongolia has 21 provinces, and every province has their own small competition. So horse racing is like a year-round activity, just like wrestling and archery. So if you want to come to Mongolia and experience horse racing, I would say the best time is June, July, August, because that's when the summer and all the races take place. And of course, some people express their concerns about the jockeys. There are small kids, and the some people express their concerns about the safety of the jockey kids, but things have been improving the past few years. For example, before maybe 10, 20 years ago, the kids used to race without even helmet and also other protections, but now, thanks to the works of UNICEF and other children's organizations, there are requirements. For example, children under a certain age are not allowed to race, and also they are required to wear protection helmets and other pads on their knees and elbows. So yeah, things have been improving, but of course it's our traditional heritage, so we want to continue and our culture.
Good. The other thing that I know you and I were going to work on eventually was a video on hockey in Mongolia. And some of the research we were doing was that there's 19 outdoor rinks in Mongolia, and then they built the new steppe arena. And it also has promoted. I know there's a few Canadians that have been promoting hockey and taking hockey equipment over to Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, to promote hockey.
Mm-hmm. Well, hockey was one of the biggest sports in Mongolia during the Soviet time. But now young people are mostly interested in football or soccer and also esports, MMA. But still, there are a very big hockey community in Mongolia. And the Mongolian Hockey League competitions usually takes place during the winter months, because in summer we don't have an indoor ice rink before. But now we have an indoor ice rink called Steppe Arena, which will help develop the sport of hockey in Mongolia for sure. And the Steppe Arena is a big project, and not just hockey but also other sports events take place there. Recently Russian figure skaters visited Mongolia and displayed a performance there. So not just hockey but also all winter sports are on their way to go to the next level in Mongolia, I think. As for hockey, I'm not really a big hockey fan, so I don't really know much about Mongolian hockey. But yeah, we compete at international competitions, hockey, ice hockey, and also bandy. I think it's also some sort of hockey, type game, bandy, and we actually won few medals. Yeah, Canada has been helping us a lot in terms of sports development, especially hockey, and yeah, I hope they will continue their collaboration with us in the future.
Has there been any, in the last few months, has there been any other issues or concerns come up in Mongolia? I mean, I know the last time you and I were going to talk, there was issues with the coal, and that was, well, I was going to say the newscasts across the world, saw where Mongolia was taking care of a lot of some of the citizens that were, selling coal under the table and taking care of that. But and I know that energy and coal and that is such a big export to China that they couldn't overlook it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I posted a few videos about that protests on coal theft, as they call it. It was a really big topic during maybe December and January, but now it's mostly died down. But most people still talk about it on social media, and but there has been new scandal recently, which is about the education loan fund, which is the fund that provides money for bright young minds to study abroad. But recent leaks show that this fund is not going to the kids who actually need it. So the politicians, they actually use this fund to send their kids to abroad, not just normal kids, regular household kids. So there has been a lot of also scandals and talks and also some protests going on because of this issue. So every maybe 2 or 3 months there are some issues, scandals, and then there's a protest, and then it dies down. It's kind of like a cycle here, and the sad thing is nothing is actually being done about this. There's social media outbursts, sensations, and then people started to gradually forget it, and then there's another drama, another issue, and unless we do some structural change, some really big change, I don't think it's gonna change. Yeah.
Yeah. I look a little more positive that at least they're uncovering some of these issues. Like they're actually, talking about these issues. Mm-hmm. I mean, no country's immune to this type of corruption. And, I've got a lot of faith in the Mongolian, people that I met, that there's a lot of change and movement going on right now that they're going to continue. And the other thing I've been monitoring is the economic support from a lot of the countries, whether it be Korea, Japan, the U.S., Canada, Australia, Germany, all wanted to come in and to assist where they can. And so, you watch what's happening, and so even though there's issues that are holding Mongolia back, there's also a lot of positive change going on too. And you know what? I've always pointed out that the average age is just under 30 years of age, and so that makes it more dynamic.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, It's good to hear from perspective of a foreign person, because sometimes you just forget. When you're too close to the project, you start to forget the perspective. So it's good to hear from other perspective.
Yeah, and the one thing you look at it, you're finding out about the issues, and it takes time to deal with them. I mean, whether you're in Canada or US, it doesn't matter. We've all got our issues here, but I've got a lot of faith that the Mongolians are going to work through this. It's like they got a lot of younger generation that's going to be able to push this change through. So it's all good. So have you got other questions? I wish I was there, because I always wanted to go see the Bonkar dogs again. That's always been a popular video, to go see the land race dogs of the Bonkars. And that's what I wanted to go and see again this year. Plus, you and I wanted to take a trip out to the old capital of Karakoram, and follow Genghis Khan's steps. That's what I wanted to do.
So, can I ask a question?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What was the most surprising thing when you were in Mongolia, in terms of like culture and lifestyle?
I don't think it was a surprise. I mean, as we talked about it, Mongolia is still a kind of a relatively unknown country, especially in Canada. I mean, I think there's only under 5,000 people a year that visit Mongolia from Canada. Now, Australia and the United States, of course, are much larger visiting, and of course, Korea and China. But when it comes to North American visits, Mongolia is just not well known yet, and it's part of marketing. Now, I've always been intrigued about, the history of Genghis Khan and the rise of the Mongolian Empire. But I think my biggest insight was, again, young population, well educated, very progressive, looking for ways to, become in their own, like become recognized that they are very, they are very well educated. They've got a lot to offer, and they're very entrepreneurial. And I keep on reminding people that Mongolia has only been 30 years away from, Soviet rule at the time and domination, and they've done a lot in 30 years. So, yeah, and I'm always one to inverse for the culture. And the other thing I think is the pride within the nomadic herders. I mean, 25% of Mongolia is in agriculture, and 25% of the labor force is nomadic and agriculture. And the nomadic herders, I come out of there when I'm with them. I always feel stronger because they're very resilient. They got to deal with wildfires and bad winters and issues, but they seem to survive. They've been doing it for 2,000 years, and they're very tough. So that was a big insight.
Yeah, nomadic herding culture is the true identity of our nation. So I hope we can preserve this culture, this lifestyle in the coming few thousand years. And also, what I find most interesting about Canada is the indigenous people. And I read the book that there's maybe a connection between Canadian indigenous people and Mongolians. What do you know about that? What do you think about that speculation?
I mean, 5% of the population in Canada is, indigenous, and like a lot of indigenous populations across the world, they've had their difficult time. But I can only speak that a lot of the indigenous people in Canada are becoming trying to become very entrepreneurial, progressive. It's taken time because of a lot of the issues that happened in the past. But my own anecdotal experience, if you're in northern British Columbia, northern Alberta, I've had Mongolian friends that have traveled there, and they've told me, they've remarked to me that a lot of their connections, they feel a lot of similarities, facial similarities, a lot of physical similarities. They didn't talk about cultural as much. It might be more towards the Inuit that they feel because of the throat singing areas. But definitely, I had one Mongolian friend. She told me that when she traveled to northern British Columbia, that she saw one person that she said reminded her of her grandmother. I mean, it was that close in the facial features. So yeah, there's definitely got to be some connection.
Yeah,
I've got no doubt about that. Yeah.
Yeah, in the future, I want to explore this connection between Mongolians and Northern American indigenous people, and that's what I want to do in the future. And if you're in, we can do this together.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I want to go to Mongolia to explore the Genghis Khans in western Mongolia with the eagle hunters and the lap and the reindeer. And you want to come to Canada to go to northern British Columbia. That's pretty funny. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll have to do
Okay.
a switch on that one.
Mhm. Okay,
So-
let's wrap it up. What do you think?
Okay, so Bayor, good talking to you. I'll let you know, when my next trip back to Mongolia is, and appreciate giving some of this insight, what's going on in Mongolia right now. And so all the best to you, and you have a good summer.
Yeah, you too have a good summer and have a good time in Ghana. And
Ghana, yeah.
yeah, and I hope to see you again very soon.
All right, it would. Okay, take care, my friend.
Okay, take care.
All right, bye.